Hi, my name's Blake. I'm in Professor Marsh's Management of the Enterprise class, and this is my presentation on Sustainable Development Goals. Air travel has become an absolute necessity since it first became available at the beginning of 1914, over 100 years ago. It has now become an estimated $500 billion industry, from people to cargo, food, jewelry, flowers, and more. Planes are used for a lot, and if you look far back enough, they used to fly television reels from continent to continent, so across the pond could get the latest of Coronation Street, before the internet existed. Without air travel, our modern society would never be able to function as quickly as it does. But as many things do, they turn into a game of Monopoly ruled by politics. I've chosen Heathrow Airport Holdings Limited from the UK, which I'll just be calling Heathrow for simplicity, since they're the only international airport that operates as a business that intends to take a profit. They're also the biggest airport in the world. All but one international airport is government owned, and they lose millions per year. For example, according to ctvnews.ca Toronto, Pearson Airport lost $383 million in 2020. While this has largely ballooned due to fewer flights from the COVID-19 pandemic, it's not a one-off. In 2019, Toronto Pearson still lost nearly $140 million in a single year, on top of their $500 million historical debt. Airports generally aren't in the business of making money, but Heathrow, the one privately owned international airport, is unique in that they specialize in making you spend the most money from the moment you walk in the door. Despite the pandemic, it managed to bring in over £1 billion British pounds in 2020. But they did this by forcing airlines to fly thousands of empty planes and consequently hurting the environment, which in turn affects climate change. I'll come back to this soon, after I talk about some of the Sustainable Development Goal action, which is the whole point of my presentation after all. While we can pretty well say air travel is extremely important in our society, one might say that the climate is a little more important. I know I would. And while the United Nations has 17 goals known as SDGs, which means Sustainable Development Goals, air travel doesn't exactly conform to these Sustainable Development Goals, which I'll just be referring to as SDGs for the sake of not getting my tongue twisted. The 17 SDGs in order are: no poverty. We want to end poverty around the world. Zero hunger. Almost seems like common knowledge, but we don't want a single person going to bed or waking up hungry. Good health and well-being. Quality education. Everyone deserves the chance to learn to read and write at the very least. Gender equality. All women and girls must be empowered. Clean drinking water and sanitation. Everyone should have basic access. Affordable and clean energy for all. Decent work and economic growth. Everyone deserves a fair wage and fair work. Industry innovation and infrastructure. Reduced inequalities from the disabled to any minority group. They all deserve to live their lives with peace and the same opportunities as everyone else. Sustainable cities and communities. Responsible consumption and production. Just sheer excess and waste. Canada's a big offender on this one. Climate action, the SDG I'll be primarily focusing on, and it involves the urgent action to combat climate change and its current and future impacts. Life below water, out of sight, out of mind, doesn't mean it's not a problem. Life on land, ever-growing populations, expanding economies, causes a decrease in the number of wild animals by the day. Peace, justice, and strong institutions as a whole. Finally, partnerships for the goals. Global partnerships from governments, and everyone's help is needed to make these goals happen. Namely, number 13, number 12, and number 8 are affected by air travel. And these are climate action, responsible consumption and production, and decent work and economic growth. But I'll be solely focusing on climate action in this presentation. Now that you know a little bit about each of the United Nations SDGs, I'll go back to my subject, Heathrow Airport. The largest offender among many international airports, wreaking absolutely unnecessary havoc on the environment. You see, the climate problem at Heathrow doesn't just lie in one section of the business structure, like the airlines, planes, restaurant, or stores. The climate issue is more systematic than that, and it's intertwined in the regulations Heathrow forces airlines to follow, which are largely fueled by money and shareholders' pressure on the airports, no matter the effect on climate. Each airline seat produces 80% less CO2 in 2016 than each seat did in 1950. Despite this, due to increased flights, there's only been a 25% decrease in CO2 emissions since 1950, and furthermore, each subsequent generation of airliner is on average 20% more efficient than the previous generation. And even still, Heathrow running unnecessary flights are still responsible for 23.5 million tons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere alone. Good luck to the climate processing all these dead dinosaurs. The airliners can't be blamed. It's in their best interest financially and for the climate to stop running ghost flights. I'll explain. There are thousands of planes flying all around the world, totally empty, with only a small flight crew, hence the term ghost flight. And there's nothing anyone can do about it due to sneaky policies that have been in place long before the pandemic, when it was actually reasonable to fly so often. But when COVID hit and there are so many fewer passengers on flights than before, they had to keep many flights operating due to a slot system used by most airports, and something Heathrow is famously strict in enforcing. At a busy airport like Heathrow, only so many flights can come in and out at a given time. Airlines bid on slots, which give them the right to book flights through Heathrow. But if these slots aren't used, they're considered forfeited, can't be renewed. So other airlines can bid on them and steal them. Historically, Heathrow is a very difficult airport to get a slot for, so airlines have kept flying empty planes to and from Heathrow, and many other difficult airports for that matter, just to save their slots and ensure that once restrictions begin to lift, people begin traveling more, that the flights are available to be booked and their slots still exist. But one might wonder, why is Heathrow essentially forcing airlines to fly empty planes just to keep their slots, when they know how poorly this impacts the environment? Why? Money, of course. The master of all. Greta Thunberg, a well-known climate activist, has commented her disbelief on the situation by tweeting her outrage at the sheer waste in resources and environmental harm. Technically, the waste that affects the climate comes from the jets that continue to fly empty throughout the pandemic. But you really can't blame the airlines. They're just protecting their market share for the future. There are many possible solutions too, but then Heathrow would lose money. Why does Heathrow require airlines to actually fly the planes in and out of the airports? Airliners can keep bidding on slots, paying for the steep Heathrow price, without actually flying the planes into and out of the airports. But of course, this would result in less revenue overall for Heathrow, less fuel sold to fly out and out over and over and over again every single airline every day. Flight staff spend less money, etc., and yet they're killing the environment in an area which is already in the bottom 50th percentile of urban centers likely to remain completely unaffected by climate change in the next 50 years. The outlook isn't great as it is. More years of this and increased flooding, dangerous storms, and homes and businesses becoming absolutely unlivable is to be expected. I might be able to take these skis and get across the water one day. Who knows? At least then I won't have to pay the outrageous flight prices to fly at Heathrow. Another possible solution is Heathrow charging a markup on flights that choose to not actually fly. So it's a win-win for the airport and the airline. But then again, who sets the price and what makes it fair? To put these slots into context, they're very, very, very expensive. 2 slots equate to 1 flight, and 2 slots for a 5:30 a.m. flight recently changed hands for $75 million. They don't come cheap. To clarify, an undesirable slot arriving at 5:30 a.m. sold for $75 million to Air France. I am serious. The airlines are given an ultimatum: kill the environment, waste some money, but save our slots, or go bankrupt trying to save the environment. I know what I'd do. It's in Heathrow's best interest to keep the airlines flying, and they recently just increased their fuel prices by 20% as well. Flights will cost anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000 for a domestic flight, and up to $14,000 for an international flight. Big consistent profit that would be lost with an average of 1,300 flights a day. And yes, if it's an international slot, an international plane has to claim the slot, which all contributes to the aforementioned 23.5 million tons of carbon dioxide being pumped from the environment from ghost flights with no one on them. So why does Heathrow do something about it? Simple. No reason to. So they continue to make money, and we're not doing anything to stop them. If you were making millions, would you stop if no one put up any serious objections? I've given some solutions, but really, they're tough and might be deemed inconclusive in real life. If Heathrow charges a markup on flights that don't fly, the airline doesn't pay a pilot, and Heathrow still takes a cut. But then, everyone associated with the flight has no job. That being said, I'm concerned with climate effects and what action, or lack thereof, is being taken to help the climate, and not necessarily job safety. And so this markup really is the best option, since money shouldn't transcend climate. The problem is only getting worse, and flying more planes certainly isn't helping. Climate action needs to be taken seriously in the UK to bring it into a more favorable position on the climate index, presently and for the future. If no one takes action, Heathrow will continue to be a part of the problem and pollute, and the situation will only get worse. So what will you do about it? I'll tell you what I'm doing for climate action. I won't be flying through Heathrow. I'll be flying around my drone on a domestic flight. And me and my Hot Wheels, well, we can go driving. We're going to go zoom zoom, only when necessary, of course, and I won't be boarding a plane to support an organization that pollutes. And guess what? My Hot Wheels doesn't take any polluting gas. We're all set. Thanks for listening.